And I had to ask, do you still play League of Legends? And if so, why? Because it's not
Oh
fun.
my goodness.
No one enjoys it. It's just pain.
I actually played just yesterday, but I haven't
Yep,
played today.
me too.
It's a love-hate relationship. Just like I have to play it, and I spent some money on skins, so it's like might as well.
You're already in the hole, so why not?
So why not just embrace it?
Mhm.
I'm here for the ride.
Hi, I'm Brad. Where are you calling from?
We're a band from New York City.
I'm calling from Vancouver.
Quebec City, Canada.
And wherever you are, welcome to Blond Radio. Hi, I'm Brad. I live on the west coast of Canada, and I'm really enjoying summer, even if my sleep schedule is absolute trash right now. And welcome to Blond Radio, where every week I book calls with strangers from around the world. And this marks episode 10. Blond Radio wouldn't have made it this far without you. To all the guests, supporters, and everyone who has submitted a voice message over the months, thank you. Like, so much. It's been a lot of work, but I wouldn't want it any other way. To celebrate and to take a little break, this week we'll only have one very special guest, the OG number one herself, my mom. And it turned out pretty great, I gotta say. I'm really excited for you to hear it. But first, this week at Blond Radio on Instagram, I gave you guys a prompt. What does family mean to you? Here's what you had to say.
Hey, I'm Aiden. I'm calling from Mason, Michigan. Family to me is someone that you can always count on to be there for you. And it doesn't matter whether they're related to you or not, but it's someone that you can always rely on no matter the circumstances. Have a good day.
Hey, it's Cara and I'm calling from the UK. Family to me are people who love and accept you, and now and then you may have your fallings out, but you know you're always there for each other at the end of the day. And they don't have to be people that you're closely related to or bound to by blood, but they're the people who you've found throughout your life who know so much about you and still love you for who you are.
Hi, I'm Dylan. I'm calling from Syracuse, New York. To me, family is really anyone that you can always rely on. It doesn't have to be someone you're relating to. I feel like you can choose your family based on people you can really trust.
I'm Weston. I'm calling from Colorado, and family to me is a group of people that make you feel like even when you're the worst version of yourself, that you are still worthy of love and they're there to support you.
Hi, my name's Anastasia. I'm calling from Edmonton, Alberta, and family means everything to me. I can't imagine a day not thinking about family, not just my birth family, my siblings and everything like that, but like the family that I've chosen, like the people that have made my life super incredible. Like I have chosen people to be in my circle and they truly belong in my circle, and I can't imagine my life without them. And I find that it's really funny that sometimes I'll be thinking about people so much so that either I'll message them and they'll tell me that they were just thinking about me, or they'll message me and tell me that they were thinking about me. Like it's weird like that we have that telepathy connection. I don't know. I think that's really cool. I love my family so much. Like I could probably go on for more than just a recording about them.
Hi, I'm Juanita and I'm calling from Bogota, Colombia. The word family to me is related to the word home. I like to believe that family is the people that I go to that feel like home when I need that sense of care and support and warmth. I think when you are going through hard times, you always search for home and search for those people that feel like a support and a blanket, and that will comfort you so much that you will feel immediately better. And yeah, I think family is all of those that will try to understand you and help you go through difficult times. I love Blond Radio, and I hope everyone is having a good day or a good night. Bye!
Thanks to everyone for submitting the responses, and tune in to Blond Radio on Instagram to submit your own. Okay, how's your day?
It's going.
It sure is. Very good. Well, so I know you because I'm your son. But if you were to describe to someone who didn't know you, like who you are and what you do, what would you say?
Well, I guess it would depend who I was talking to.
Of course.
I don't know. I mean, I'm a wife, and I'm a mother, and I'm a registered nurse. I deliver babies. There's many ways to describe yourself. What else are you looking for?
That's very good. That's good. And I know we've spoken to this, but when did you know nursing was what you wanted to do?
Oh, right from very young. I can remember playing hospital with my dolls, the cat when it would tolerate me, bandaging up his leg and whatnot.
Of course, of course.
Yes.
If you could just give a mini life summary, how did you get to this point? What are some, if you look in retrospect, the major keystones to Cindy?
Did I get to this point?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
let's start with, you always knew you wanted to be a nurse. So,
yes.
So from there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess that sort of influenced, obviously, there was only a brief period of time, probably towards the end of high school, where I sort of questioned if that's what I wanted to do. It was pretty brief because obviously I went directly from high school into college taking nursing. And school always came really easy for me. And I studied, but I was a good student. But I actually remember the first year of college and nursing being very difficult because college and university is much more, not that I felt like I was spoon-fed during high school and the rest of my schooling, but it was much less so in college. And I kind of had to, I know the first semester I was trying to figure out how to make that work for how I was normally used to studying and learning and stuff. But anyway, obviously we figured that out. But that was sort of, I always felt bad for people that didn't know what they wanted to do because it was nice knowing what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And I can remember my mom always telling me it's good to have a career. You never know. Obviously she wanted me to have a happy and successful life and to find a marriage partner, but just to be able to support myself regardless of my circumstances was something that she used to think was important, which was a great thing. And I've been very blessed in my marriage and relationship not to have been faced with that, but it always felt good to me in the back of my mind to know that I would be able to look after myself if something happened.
Totally.
That changed the path of my life and that I wasn't without some skills.
Mm-hmm. I think to call you reliant would be a falsity and an underhand. You're probably the most, of course, appreciate you. Thank you for, raising me the way I am. But I feel you wouldn't be dependent on anyone if circumstances let out differently,
Yeah. And I think that's, if you're able to achieve that in life, that's a great thing. And not to diminish what, people can bring to each other in relationships and depending on other people in different ways. But I still feel like it's important to me to know that I'm not reliant on that for my existence.
Yeah. And maybe you could tie into this because you spoke about marriage and dad, but I feel like maybe what also ties into that is the story of how I didn't almost exist for a little bit there.
Oh, you're talking about the car rolling?
Well, see, I was going to bring that up, where you rolled the car while you were still pregnant with me, but no, even further back.
The fact that I just about didn't marry your father.
Yes. Yeah. Tell us about that.
Well, so I actually met and worked with your father right after grade 12 at a summer camp. Mm-hmm. Both of us, we, knew each other at camp, but I was dating somebody else and, it wasn't any kind of a romantic relationship. It just, we knew each other from camp. And then I went off back to, to taking nursing and he lived up in Williams Lake and I was out in Alberta. So our paths didn't cross again for a couple of years. After my second year of nursing, I had gone to Japan and was there for 6 months. Mm-hmm. And when I came back, I was going to be finishing up my nurses training in the States, but just circumstances of the changing the curriculum of the nursing program, I had to go back to Alberta just for one semester of school. And it just so happened that was the only semester that your father attended this same university as me. Well, it was only about 3 months maybe that we dated, 3 or 4 months. But at that point, I was quite strongly convinced that this was somebody that I wanted to invest and spend perhaps the rest of my life with. Unfortunately, because I was going to be finishing my education in the States, he was quite adamant that he did not want to participate in a long distance relationship. When I suggested that I could perhaps change and try to do my education closer to home, that promptly caused him to end our relationship because he didn't want me changing my plans for him, blah, blah, blah. I tootled off to the States for my last 2 years of nursing, ended up going to school with somebody who I had previously known from earlier on in my life. We started to date. Yeah, after the first year, we got engaged. And then many circumstances and things that caused. But anyway, we were supposed to have been married a month after I graduated from nursing, and I actually ended up calling off that wedding my graduation weekend. And it's pretty intense. Probably one of the hardest things I ever did in my life, but absolutely one of the best things I ever did in my life. So that, of course, sort of put me in a very tumultuous situation because I had graduated in the States. I couldn't come back and work in Canada until I had written my US state boards, and then I had to write my Canadian state boards. And in those days, it wasn't like online now where it's all fast and furious. You have to actually physically go to a building and sit for 2 days and write on paper your exams. I decided that I would just make the best of the situation. And so I packed my little car and moved by myself to Denver, Colorado. And I worked all summer as what they called the grad nurse, because you didn't find out the results of your test until like 6 or 8 weeks after you wrote the exam. In August, your father heard that my wedding had been called off. So he bravely called my parents and asked for my phone number. And you have to understand that in those days, the phones were super expensive. The only time it was even halfway not expensive was like after midnight. And even then, when you were calling from Canada to the States, it was much more expensive. I think the first phone call we talked for like 2 or 3 hours. It was crazy. Thus commenced our long distance relationship that a couple of years ago he did not want any part of. Anyway, he ended up flying down to Denver in October, Canadian Thanksgiving, to see me. And then I came back up to Canada at Christmas and wrote my Canadian boards, and we got engaged. And I moved back home in March, and we got married in April. So less than a year from when I had called off my first wedding, but clearly it was meant to be. And that is the brief history of your father and I.
It seems like they all came together and he came to his senses.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, you as well.
Yes, me as well. So I suppose there was a brief moment of time when, yes, you would not have probably existed in this world.
Now tell me, and then eventually, of course, Brent and I came along.
Yes.
I don't think I've ever spoken about my brother in these interviews. I feel like people would be surprised if I had a brother, but besides the point. So yeah, my childhood, as most people's childhoods, I'd imagine a little bit foggy because, I wasn't consciously present for the first little bit of it.
No.
Is there things in my childhood that you feel foreshadowed who I am now?
Well, I just find it so interesting that you were an extremely shy child. And I don't know whether because of that, you've what exactly flipped that switch. And because I don't find you that way at all now. Well, yeah, because you were about 2, I think, the first summer that we worked. Dad started working at the summer camp. I think once you got to know people, like initially, you were a very cute baby and child, and people used to fawn over you and, oh, he's so cute. And, But when you're in a situation where there was 20, 25 summer camp, they're basically college students, half of them girls, and they're all,
And that's intimidating.
And that's intimidating. But I think once you got to know that, actually, because I can still remember you yelling across the dining hall for Holly, and stuff like that. I think once you sort of got past that initial, there was several of the girls that used to do some babysitting specifically for us with you when I had to go and work and stuff. And, you got to know them on a different level. So you felt more comfortable with them and stuff. But yeah, it wasn't until we were more probably over here on the island that I felt like, that shyness part of you kind of started to not be so consuming in your interaction with the people. Yeah. I don't know if you remember being shy as a child.
Oh, for sure. Literally anywhere in public, just hiding behind you.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And what is, could you speak to summer camp and what that was all about? Because it's kind of just this vague part of our life that we sort of just passively acknowledge, but I feel like it
well, I mean, especially you were only 2 when we went there, and you were 8 when we left. Well, I mean, this is actually the summer camp that your dad and I worked at as teenagers, and your dad had an opportunity to be the director, and he was filling a spot the first summer because there had been a vacancy happen rather abruptly, and because in the interim time between when we worked there as teenagers and then in our early married life, we used to go and volunteer for a week. I'd be the camp nurse, and Dad would do whatever to help out around. And he always had a passion and involvement with youth and stuff, so it was fun for him. And anyway, by midway through the summer, I guess they kind of liked what he was doing and asked if he'd stay on. And so that became a very unfortunately, and we don't need to go into all the details of how that ended, but we have very fond memories of that time, and I think it was great. And what a place for you guys to spend your summers as boys,
Definitely.
And I don't, you were younger than your brother, but I think that both of you have good memories as far as stuff that you did at camp and that.
And it's definitely God, sometimes not to excite you, Mom, but when I think about if and when I have kids, but I feel that's so much more rare and rare. That childhood we had, we just grew up in this tiny town.
Right. Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
And we lived literally in the woods.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
And I'm scared. If I were to have kids, I'd have to retreat somewhere to some wilderness.
Right. No, and I mean, when I think about that aspect of it, I'm really glad that we were in that sort of environment where it wasn't big city and
Totally. And we sort of danced around it there, but I feel in our family history, that was maybe one of the most more tumultuous times. I know
absolutely.
When I think about maybe hard things growing up, it was maybe just the moving around a lot, getting resettled a few times. I feel once we came to the island, it was pretty stable, but there's definitely some adapting going on. It felt for a few years there, it was just sort of year after year of a wrench being thrown in of either getting having to move because of extenuating circumstances or what have you.
Right.
What kept us together? What kept the family not,
Well, I think that probably part of it was, whatever the reasons and why we were moving around, it wasn't, we as a family were still unified. It wasn't your dad and I were at odds about something, or other than, I mean, sometimes it was circumstances of job more than anything of, moving about like that. But that was probably the summer camp years, especially, in a sense, you guys were being disrupted because we would basically move out there for the summer. As much as possible, we tried to bring and set up stuff so that sort of home, but I'm sure that it was, not exactly home, But yeah, I mean, I feel it was something we were doing together. So it wasn't as disruptive as it could have been, I guess. And I mean, once we came here, yes, we did change houses a couple times, but it wasn't disrupting school and, work and whatever. It was more of just,
just a little juggling there for a bit
within the same community kind of thing. But
yeah. Awesome. You spoke to grandma used to say to you, like, you were lucky to find your career and purpose so early, because that's something not a lot of people have.
Yeah.
So not to say like you don't have perspective on that, because I feel like you're of that small percent that did know what they were doing. But
Right.
what, over the years, what advice could you give to someone who's trying to find that purpose?
It's hard when you know, like, and then, well, sometimes 90% of the time I feel like, yeah, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. But there's the odd time where you do think, well, did I just settle into something too quickly? Did I, what else was out there? What else could have I done? This is 30 plus years ago. And not that there weren't obviously opportunities, but I feel now that there's part of the problem is there's too many choices.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, when I was growing up, it was, even though sort of you were told you could do whatever you wanted, as a girl, a woman, you couldn't really do everything. If you pushed past the stereotypes and picked something that was very odd, yes, you had the wherewithal to forage forward. You could do what you wanted, but I think the boundaries were more than they are now. And I don't know. I just feel like sometimes people, there's too much choice, and they get frozen by that. And if you can somehow step back from that, sort of figure out what your passion is and what makes you happy, because I feel like you can't to do a job that you do just because it's a job and it doesn't fulfill you in other ways and make you happy. That's not the kind of life you should be living.
No. Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, that's a huge chunk of your time. If that huge chunk of your time is just putting in time to bring home $1 and not be fulfilled by it, that's not fun.
That's gonna
I think the
burn out,
best
sure.
thing in life is if you can make money at what you love doing. We all need money to live. That's just the way it is.
Unfortunately, for the time being.
Fortunately.
Because that's definitely one of the things, like, when people ask about my parents, that I'm like most glad to say is, like, my mom, she delivers babies and she loves doing it, like, and she still loves doing it. Like, it's not, yeah, as many times as you've come home and said, like, it was a stressful day, I feel like behind that is still like, but I wouldn't, want to do anything else.
Absolutely. Yeah. And as many, and sometimes I kick myself. I wish I would have kept track of how many deliveries I've witnessed in my 31 years of doing it. But it's like, when it can still make me emotional in the moment, I know that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it hasn't become routine and old. And yes, there are sometimes stressors in your job and things that make it better or worse. But that moment for me, I still can tear up, and I think that's amazing.
It's very special.
Yeah, it is very special, because you're witness to something that, on a human life scale is an amazing moment for a couple. To be able to participate in that is pretty cool.
Definitely a blessing. Awesome. Well, thank you, Mom, for talking to me.
Well, thank you, son, for listening to me.
Of course. I'll let you get back to your bread making. What kind of bread is it?
Oh, it's rye sourdough.
Of course. But thank you for talking.
All right.
I love you.
I love you too. How do you hang this thing up? Do I just click on it?
I'll hang it up.
Okay, you hang it up.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
Special thanks to everyone who submitted a response for making this episode possible. And, of course, thank you, Mom. Intro music provided by Wayfie, that's Wayfie, and accompanying tracks by Loboil, that's Loboil, who can both be found on all major streaming platforms. I'll see you soon, and thanks for tuning in to Blond Radio.